Vampire Beach Bloodlust by Alex Duvall. Chapter 1. Malibu. Jason Freeman took a deep breath of the fresh California air. He lived in Malibu now. This was him driving his VW Beetle down the Pacific Coast Highway. The thought was as blinding as the sun on the ocean, as dazzling as the white sand stretched out alongside the car. Right alongside the car, he could pull over and be down there in... How insane is this house? Jason reluctantly dragged his gaze away from the Malibu and glanced at the house his sister Danielle was pointing to. She pulled her sunglasses down for a better look, and her gray eyes were wide with curiosity. "It has a tennis court," she declared, "and I bet that glass dome on the indoor pool is an indoor pool. They don't let you see much, do they? All these trestles and flowers." Danny glanced over his shoulder as they drove by, trying to eye TiVo every detail. The new job of Dad's, that unpassable job, the one I had to leave all my friends for. It pays gazillions of dollars. Why aren't we living in a place like that? Places like that cost multiple gazillions, Jason told her. Besides, we have a pool at the new house. An outdoor pool, Danny complained. But Jason could hear a hint of amusement in her voice. The idea of complaining about anything in the city was ridiculous. "Don't knock the pool. It's lovely, kidney-shaped with colored tile detailing," Jason said, quoting the real estate agent with a wry smile. Danny adjusted her Oliver Peoples sunglasses that was a gift from her Aunt Bianca. The aunt who, aside from having impeccable fashion sense, had also mentioned the new job to their dad and helped find their new house. "True, but the pool doesn't make up for being dragged halfway across the country for weeks before junior year," Danny said flatly. Jason sighed. He knew that leaving all her friends part of the situation had really upset Danielle. She had at least 30 best friends back in Michigan, and she hadn't wanted to part with any of them. "Hey, so I heard about a guy called the Surf Rabbi," he said, trying to get Danny's mind off her homesickness. "He's an actual rabbi. He's like 50 years old, and he gives surfing lessons, spiritual surfing lessons. He's all about, I don't know, giving yourself over to the water or something. He teaches in Malibu." Danny managed. Jason shot a look at her, at the surfers already out in the ocean. Sweet, he couldn't wait to get out there himself, but he might need to pay a visit to the rabbi first, seeing as he'd never set a foot on board. The lifeguards station on their long wooden legs reminded him of another thing he needed to do. He needed to find out where to apply for a job as a guard. That was seriously on top 10 list of things to do, now that he was living in California, right after joining a gym. He figured he had a decent shot at getting a lifeguard job since he's been on the swim team back home, and he's already taken a life-saving course. "Jeans!" Danny gasped as they neared the school gates. "Huh?" Jason queried. "I have to change," Danny said, as if it was actually an explanation. Jason raised an eyebrow. She rushed on. "Those girls we just passed were all wearing designer jeans." She shook her head, her chin-length auburn hair flying around her face. "And I'm in a skirt. I'm not dressed right," he said. Jason sighed. "We don't have time for you to change. We just got here. Besides, what you're wearing is fine," he assured her. Danielle pulled out a brush and whipped it through her hair. "It's different for you. You're a guy. You have the vintage bug. You have the blonde hair, blue eyes combo. You look like a combination of Chad Michael Murray and somebody not so WB. Nobody's going to care what you're wearing. And you're the only one who cares what you're wearing," Jason countered. "You look great. You always do. Chill out, Danny." Jason swung the car into a parking lot of DeVere as in DeVere Heights, the gated complex where they now lived. and DeVere University, and DeVere Museum of Modern Arts, and DeVere Library, and DeVere Athletics Complex, etc., etc., and etc. He killed the engine and opened the car door. Danny remained motionless. Her gray eyes were filled with apprehension behind her shades. She hated change. She always had. She actually insisted on moving every single Narnia book she'd ever owned across the country, even though she hadn't read them in years. She seemed to think that the world would end if she didn't have them stuffed in her closet in Malibu, just the way she had them stuffed in her closet in Michigan. Jason had handed out his belongings left and right. He wanted to start clean here. No mooning over his past life, no calling his old friends every 5 minutes, no thinking about Michigan like it had been some kind of paradise. He wished he could give Danny a transfusion of some of his excitement. They were in Malibu now. Life was going to change, and Jason wanted it to. In Fraser, the suburb where they lived, since birth, he had been able to see every day, every week, every month stretching out in front of him. Not bad, but boring. Here he had no idea what was going to happen, and it was a total rush. Listen, you had more friends than anyone else at our old school, Jason reminded his sister. It's not going to be any different here. He climbed out of the car. The Bug looked like a toy among all the ginormous H2s and Range Rovers that filled the lot. Still, Jason spotted a number of Mercedes SLK convertibles and several other vintage cars like his own. Not everyone was an SUV freak. He glanced at Danny. She was still in the car. A couple of girls around his sister's age, 16, walked by, laughing and gossiping at each other just like girls everywhere. They don't seem so evil, Jason pointed out. With a sigh, Danny climbed out the car and gave the girls a once-over. They definitely wouldn't survive a winter in Michigan, she said at last. There's the old Danny attitude, Jason joked. He smiled as he led the way to the main building. It looked nothing like a school. An art gallery, maybe. A mansion? Sure, but not a school. It had arches and parapets and red roof tiles. A bell tower rose up from one side and a wide porch wrapped around the second floor. They stepped through the largest archway and found themselves in a central courtyard with a manicured lawn in the middle, surrounded by palm trees. Jason still wasn't used to seeing palms all over the place, and flowers grew like weeds out here. Not in neat little gardens, but everywhere. On the medians of the freeways, on the side of the buildings. He even seen some growing around the trunks of a palm tree. I'm this way, he announced, stopping in a cool, dim walkway next to the courtyard. Stone steps led up the side door, and his school map showed him that his first class should be right inside. He looked at the class schedule. Danny was clutching so tightly that the blood had drained from her fingers, leaving them bone-white. You're over there, he added, nodding in the opposite direction, where another set of stairs led into the wing across the courtyard. Yep, Danny replied shortly. She looked terrified at the prospect of going in alone. Look, just make it through this first week. You can do that, Jason told her encouragingly. And then what? He tried to think of something else that would help her. Going. I'll take you to the movies on Saturday, he suggested, even if it means sitting through a chick flick. Danny laughed at that a little shakily. Okay, she said with a deep breath. See you after. Jason nodded. I'll be at the car, he said, and headed away from her into what he hoped would be the unexpected. Nothing unexpected in the first 3 periods, Jason thought as he joined the cafeteria food line. Well, nothing if you don't count the fact that all the kids looked as if they had dermatologists and orthodontists and any other ontists and ologists that kept you perfect. And the fact that the cafeteria was mostly taken up by a terrace overlooking the Pacific, which was kind of a surprise. He couldn't wait to grab his food and get out of there. Somehow, when he moved here, Jason had thought his life would, start. And so far, school was still school. Beautiful, but still just school. Would you hand me that last green Borba? Jason turned towards the voice, and instantly felt as if his body had caught fire. He could feel the blood rushing through him, pulsing, throbbing, and he suddenly felt alive in a way he never had felt before, and life was full of possibilities.